Here we are. Always moving.
Yeah.
Are you guys staying right by this?
I may meet up with occasionally, so I need a couple feet there.
All right. You mind if I sit right here? I just have to get two guys.
That's fine. That, yeah. Oh, that's.
You and your fellow ag teachers have decided to organize to better solve some of the issues of the newly created occupation that we're now in. You are part of a group of agriculture educators that are meeting at the University of Illinois. Warren G. Harding is the president. Calvin Coolidge is his vice president. They're navigating their way through a bunch of scandals in the United States government, including the Teapot Dome scandal. Prohibition of alcohol is in effect, and women have only recently been able to vote. Riley Hinchy, Betty White was born in 1922. The radio is just starting to become popular in many homes and is changing the way Americans get their news and entertainment. Cars are becoming more abundant and popular and creating the change in the landscape of our country. Horses are just now being replaced by tractors. It's a great, great change in our country, and agriculture education was stepping up. The country is just getting back on its feet after the Spanish flu pandemic in the late teens. You look at the minutes of that first meeting from 1922, but they don't exist anymore. They have disappeared with history. But we'd like to reflect on the notes of 1923, June 23rd, 1923. And the first line of those records read, and I quote, "The primary purpose of this association was to bring teachers more closely together, whereby the cause of vocational agriculture could be more strongly fostered. Also, it has established a more logical relationship between agriculture teachers and the State Board for Vocational Agriculture." The timing couldn't have been better, as the Great Depression had actually started during this time for the farm community, as the agriculture boom created by World War I had ended. While the Roaring '20s was an economic boon for the country, most of the farm commodity prices were very low, debt was huge, and political clout was diminishing because people had moved to the urban areas. The first president of the IAVAT that you elected was A.T. Anderson from Pontiac. I think Mr. Anderson would be very proud of the leadership that Pontiac has provided since then in the form of Jesse Faber and Parker Bain. The new organization consisted of a president, a vice president, the secretary-treasurer, and 3 representatives from 3 separate sections of the state, northern, central, and southern. Just to confuse things, they also organized schools into 10 separate sections. And to make it even more confusing, Section 1 was in the south and Section 10 was in the north. Mark, Jamie, Ryland, my friends from Olney, you hosted the Section 2 conference that year in Olney, Illinois. Our organizations remain strong because of the strong leadership that continued over the years. Tonight we want to take the time to recognize those leaders that are with us tonight, and I'd like them to self-introduce themselves. If you were a state or national officer in agriculture education or in career and technical education, would you please come forward, come down here, I'll hand you the microphone, and introduce yourself to the crowd. And folks, these are my heroes. Please come forward. Okay, so far this isn't working out right. Mark Stieber. And just come up on your own and follow up here. Just like you would expect your kids at an FFA banquet to do. We would like everybody who was a state officer, either state or national officer in agriculture education, to please come up and introduce yourself to the crowd tonight.
Hello, my name's Mary Barnes. I was Mary Turnbull when I started 37 years ago, and I was the state treasurer for 5 years.
Alan Ritter, I was the president in 94, 95. Before that, district director 1 term, and second chairman 2 or 3 terms. I lost track.
Happy anniversary, everybody. My name is Mark Stieber. I'm from Olney. I was the state president in 0607 and had the opportunity also to serve as a regional secretary.
My name is Dick Petrovich, and I was president in 1981. I taught 35 years at New Athens High School. And talking about the 100-year birthday, not every school started in 1922. Our school started in 1942. And this year they got the one charter member that was still alive to come and be their guest speaker at the banquet. And it was awesome. And one other thing I need to say, it hasn't been mentioned. I think John Abel mentioned it in his report in his year when his wife was the wives president. My wife was the president of the wives before I was the president of the men. And Dr. Matthews' wife started the wives organization. They were there for quite a while until we started having spouses, and then it sort of changed it all.
Thank you. I'm Howard Heavner. I taught at Valmeyer High School for 33 years. I was the state president in 2010, 2011. Thank you.
Well, happy anniversary. I'm Kevin Price, and I taught 34 years at Milford High School, and I was the state IVAT president in 1999-2000, the year that we opened up the new Illinois FFA Center.
John Cabot over at Mount Vernon High School. Teacher Sherry Rozier, she's out here somewhere. Been there since '85, 34 years full-time, 3 years part-time now as co-op and third advisor over there. And past president of Ag Teachers in '97, '98. And one word of advice, when you have those students, I always live by this words when I teach students, you'll find Jesus in the least of my students. And so that's the loud kid, the mean kid, or the quiet kid. So have mercy on them and help them out. They need all the help they can get. Thank you.
Russ Lehman, Ronald Benson, was president 89-90.
Mark Wright, I taught for 36 years at Georgetown Ridge Farm. I was president 91-92. So I'm celebrating a 30-year anniversary as president.
Charlie Sappington, Clay City High School for 4 years, Cumberland High School for 30 years, Section 20 for the last 30 years. Was state president 07-08, Region 4 NAAE 2012-2014, then NAAE president in 2015.
Al Dietz, I was president of IVAT 2004 and 5. I taught at Ashton Franklin Center, taught for 35 years. One of the interesting things, the year I was president, we had the conference booked at the hotel where now the Garden Inn is in Champaign. They tore it down. And so Jim Kraft had to work very hard to find us another location real fast. And also, the guy following me here, it was the first year the foundation came in and said we need to resection and Larry got to have all the fun of doing it and got all the complaints.
Yeah, thanks, Al. Larry Littlefield, Gibson City. I was the president in 2005, 2006.
Ed Modis, I was state president in '82, '83, and I taught at Rova High School and Carl Sandburg College.
Bill Kittinger from El Dorado, retired after 44 years there, turned it over to my former students, Caleb and Paxton, and I was president 96, 97. I got to follow Mr. Meyerhofer.
Dan Faber, I started teaching at Olympia High School in 1975. In '86, I moved to Flanagan, and I taught there for 28 more years. I retired in 2014, and I was president in, was 87, 88.
Hi, I'm John Heiser. I was IVAT president 2018 to 2019.
Good evening. My name is Jay Salmonson. I served as IAVAT President 2014-2015.
Hello, my name is Jessica Collins, and I served as the IAVAT President in 2019-2020.
Ann Petrowski served as president in 2020 to 2021.
That lineup there had years, decades, centuries. We have some over here. I'll say that later. My peripheral vision wasn't good.
My name is Mike White. I served as IVAT president in 2000, 2001. No, 0102.
Hello, my name's Joe Steffen. I teach at Newark High School. I was IAVAT president in 2003, 2004.
I'm Nick James. I was IAVAT president in 2017 and 2018.
Stan Tepfer, president in 1998, 99. I had the distinction of signing the mortgage for the new property.
Hi, I'm Tony Gabriel. I currently teach at Juneau Kingston High School, and I was president in 2013 to 2014.
We're all laughing because we're trying to remember the year we were president. Heather Hobart Belden. I currently teach at Marengo, and I was the president in 2012-2013.
Jesse Faber, currently teaching at Pontiac High School. Appreciate the shout out from Jeff there, and I appreciate Jay mentioning his years so that I remember that I served in 15 and 16.
Thank you. We have one more.
John Abel from Petopolis, President 76, 77.
Those two lines, centuries of wisdom for our organization. If you want some really good stories, talk to these people at the receptions tonight and over the next couple days. A result of that first meeting they had in 1922-23 was a newsletter created called The Fan Mill. I still haven't found an original copy of the fan, or any copy of it, so if anybody has one, we'd certainly like to have one of those for the state office. The greatest concern in 1923 in that meeting was that whether or not reason should be required to be given at a judging contest. In 1924, the following year, the organization adopted a resolution requesting that the University Entrance Requirement Committee be prevailed upon to look more favorable on an agricultural being accepted for college entrance. More of history can be found in the publication that was given in your packet today, but we'd also like to present some oral history tonight from some people who not only lived it, but they created it and shaped it during the past 50 years. I'd first like to call upon Mr. Frank Dry, who will reflect on the highlights of Illinois agriculture education in the 1970s, including the recollection of the 50th anniversary. Frank is a graduate of SIU in 1970 and taught at Carlisle, Leroy, and Nashville with a stint in the U.S. Army in between. Most notably, he was the Associate Executive Secretary of the FFA and the Associate Executive Director of the IAVAT from 1985 all the way into 2012. Mr. Dry?
Thank you, Jeff. The 70s, the decade that we could call challenges and changes. The 1968 Ag Education Amendment, the Vocational Education Amendments were beginning to take effect. And as we led into the 70s, we saw ag education and the FFA were being administered by state supervisors in the Division of Adult, Vocational, and Technical Education at the Illinois Board of Public Education. And in the 60s, as we came into the 70s, innovative programs were beginning to start teaching agribusiness. They had some cooperative work experience programs. They even had a release time from school, and they were allowing a few girls into the FFA and into the ag program at the local level. The Ag 1, 2, 3, 4 model starting to change. And I see a lot of faces out here that taught Ag 1, 2, 3, 4 over the years. We were beginning to question, are we vocational ag teachers or are we ag occupations instructors? There were controversies about the 9-week period, or should we be going to semester classes? As the IAVAT tried to deal with all of this, they began to know and realize the IAVAT officers didn't have time to deal with it. So they were looking to hire a full-time executive director. And at the 1969 conference, there was a large, and there's several people out here that will remember that, there was a large dues increase and a person was hired full-time. And that person, Eldon Witt, started the Roanoke office in February 15th of 1970. And as I said, the 68 Vocational Amendment Acts and amendments were starting to change ag education and all of vocational education. Youth organizations were no longer considered an integral part of the program at the high school level and in vocational education. The way ag programs were funded was changed drastically. No more annual supervised agricultural experience reports needed to be submitted. Attendance at the annual conference was no longer required. The new plan permitted full funding without requirements of supervised experience programs. State supervisors were now called consultants. They would only visit a school as requested, and they took a less active role in section, district, and state activities. Up until that point, the FFA was administered by the state staff. All youth groups were moved out of the state office in July 1 of 1973. Luckily, FFA was able to relocate to the IAVAT office in Roanoke. All representatives of all facets of agriculture came together, and although there was strong support for an executive secretary to be hired and the office located in either Springfield or Urbana, but after much debate, the IVA took over full administration of the FFA program. As we headed into the end of the 70s, there were concerns about the shortage of qualified ag teachers, and that concern began to grow. First beginning advisors workshop was held, and the first female ag teacher was hired in 74-75 school year. The development of the core curriculum for ag teachers in Illinois began in 78 and 79, and at that time, most ag departments were using VOAG service units from the University of Illinois, along with some textbooks and any other methods and materials they could find. And as Jeff alluded to, no computers and anything else. We used film strips. Teachers then had a dress code. I remember my first in school, I was told you will be expected to wear a coat and tie every day. And as I moved on to another school, it was still a dress shirt and tie were expected. And as we finished up the 70s, we started to see more girls in the FFA, a few more female ag teachers being accepted into the ranks of an ag teacher. And as far as the 73 celebration for 50 years, I happened to be in Okinawa, Japan at the time at the invitation of Uncle Sam, so I really can't give you a whole lot, and I didn't really find much in the reports about it, but I think the concerns that I mentioned here were probably some of the main topics. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Frank. I remember when I was a state officer in 1984, one of the first chapter visits I ever went on was Woodstock High School, and Mr. Dry was a teacher there. And it was one of they put me at ease for the rest of that fall when we had to travel over. I don't ever thanked you for that, but thank you, Mr. Dry. Our next historian is Mr. Ron Reich, who will give us the highlights of Illinois agriculture education in 1980. Ron has degrees from WIU and SIU. He taught at AgEd at Brown County High School from 1976 to 81, after which he joined the state staff at ISBE, where he was from 1981 to 2008, the PAS advisor and the state FA advisor from 1991 to 2008. Mr. Reich?
Thanks, Jeff. Haven't been in front of this group for a long time, and as I look about, I see a lot of faces I don't know. I see some old familiar faces tonight. I mean, really old. I'm one of them, but it's great to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. My connection with ag education spanned, well, I guess about 5 decades, if you don't count the time I spent on the family farm before that. I was a high school student in the 60s, a college student in the early 70s, an agriculture education teacher in the late 70s, and from there on till 2008, I was state staff. I saw a lot of changes, believe me. In fact, I remember the first girl in ag at my home school was allowed to become an FFA member in 1969, and that was a big deal. We went from production agriculture for boys, which is basically how the program was designed, to a multifaceted career pathway oriented opportunity for all students in all areas of agriculture. And that we've made tremendous gains, people, and you need to really look at those history books and be thankful that we were able to make those changes. I'm going to concentrate mainly on the 80s, trying to pick up where Mr. Dry left off. And I want to say this first, if it isn't apparent in my comments, it should certainly be implied in everything that I say, that IAVAT has been a key ingredient to the success of ag education. Everything starts and ends in the classroom with the teacher. I've never forgotten what it was like to be that teacher up in front of that class, and I've never forgotten the good feelings that I got from seeing people become successful and to come to believe in themselves and do well. So if I don't say IAVAT in some of these comments, IAVAT has always been at the table. Some of the challenges in the 80s. Well, as Mr. Dry mentioned, our key funding mechanism has been stripped away. The ag teacher's salary and numerous things that were funded directly by the state were just gone. I mean, they weren't there anymore. The value of the programs were being challenged. We didn't have the reporting mechanisms anymore because those had been kicked out. Funding was based on credits generated. And by the way, your freshman and sophomore students weren't quite as important, so they weren't worth quite as much money to you as the junior and seniors or 11th and 12th graders, which I never did understand, but I wasn't asked about that. Our ag economy was suffering. I mean, people were counseling their kids, don't get in agriculture, get in something else. I mean, we're really suffering. It was hard to encourage teachers to enter the profession. It was just kind of a tough time. And as I came into the State Board of Education in 81, the philosophy pretty much was one size fits all, because I don't know how many times we tried to do something in Ag Ed or propose something. No, we can't do that. Well, why not? Well, because we can't do it in the other areas. We can't do it in the other vocational areas, which we referred to them there at that time. Very frustrating at that time. So a lot of challenges, a lot of discouragement, but still a lot of dedicated ag teachers. So what came of that? Well, we got tired of sitting around the table talking to one another because we tended to all agree what we needed and what we needed to see happen. But guess what? That discussion had been going on several years and nothing had changed really. We just felt like our hands were tied. So IAVAT, along with the whole profession, those of us from the State Board of Education that worked in Ag Ed, we all got together and we said, we need help. We need our industry folks to really help us. And not that they hadn't been supportive, they certainly had, but we needed to bring them in and help focus, and we needed a plan. And fortunately, in 1984, we were able to come together as a joint staff for ag education, the IAVAT, and the community college group. We had everyone that was involved in education for agriculture around the table. And we ended up having the key industry people there that we needed as well. And what came out of that was the Illinois Leadership Council for Agricultural Education. Well, once that happened, we had a focus. And part of what we determined was we need to say what quality is in ag education, and then we need to show how to measure that, and then we need to take that data and we need to go get some money, and we need to get some help in the legislature. And we were able to do that. The Building Illinois Through Quality Agricultural Education plan was cooperatively developed, and that ultimately ended up later being a form of that where we changed into the quality indicators for ag education that were used in the incentive funding grants. But we started slow. The first year, which was in the late 80s, the first year we got $48,500. Well, that's not even a nickel per student, so that's not very good. Next year we got $1 million, and we were off and running at that point in time, and we were able to start attacking some of these problems that we had. At that time, we were also fortunate enough to have the leadership, the individuals present that could do the job to get the FCAE going and out on the streets. And quite frankly, we needed them because state staff couldn't do what needed to be done to help ag education. We were no longer supervisors. There were 3 of us, which eventually became 1. I mean, we kept dwindling down numbers. We just could not accomplish what needed to be accomplished. So FCAE has certainly been a godsend in terms of having people available. Now, the other thing that we needed, and I didn't really like this thing, it didn't seem too fair to me, but we really needed white hat guys and gals, and then we needed some black hat guys. And guess what? I got to wear the black hat. I mean, I was still from a state agency, the regulatory side of things, so that wasn't too much fun, but we knew we needed to keep the FCAE staff able to go in and be seen as a partner and a friend and support. And we were able to get our in-service grants in place. We were able to get curriculum in place. Just a lot of good things happened at that point, from that point on. We had curriculum developed. We actually had in-service on how to use the curriculum. And then we had money going into the school to implement. What a novel concept. We've been fighting for that for centuries, it seemed like, but we finally had it. Over the years, again, I'm amazed. I was listening today, $7 million you have an ag ed line in now, great. FFA membership for everyone. Hallelujah, as I said in the meeting when I heard that. I always thought FFA was an integral component, but evidently they're just figuring that out. But we all knew that, and now we've got that access. So that's a few of the things that happened in the 80s. Thank you for the opportunity, and God bless the IAVT.
As we appreciate the $7 million in our line item now, think about that, 48,500, and it was people like this that started it, that drop in the bucket that made it happen for tonight. So thank you, Ron. We move now to the 1990s, and to give a perspective on that is Mr. Jim Kraft. Jim Kraft is no stranger to us as he played an instrumental role in creating the Illinois FFA Center in Springfield. Before serving as Executive Secretary of the Illinois FFA and Executive Director of the IAVAT for 24 years, he taught at Bluffs High School for 14 years. I can distinctly remember also, I spoke at the Bluffs High School FFA Banquet in 1985 on a day that was probably 96 degrees outside and full of humidity. The Bluffs FFA officers got together with me and said, hey, it's so hot in here, we want to take off our jackets. Can you go ask Mr. Kraft? Sure, it can't be that bad. So I want to ask Mr. Kraft, I think the words were heck no. And so at that point I knew that what commitment was to an organization, the FFA, and I still remember that today. So Levi, don't even ask, okay? Mr. Kraft.
Well, I'm glad we had 20 to 30 minutes for this each. Frank and Ron if you were on stage for your election speech, mic would have been shut off. Just using my time up or not? Putting a decade into a 2 to 3 minute comment period is kind of like putting 6 gallon of poop into a 5 gallon bucket. It can't happen and keep everything in there. So I'm not going to be able to tell you that in June 1990, we had the IAVAT Professional Award established at the state level. I can't tell you that in 1991, we held our first Made for Excellence conference, which became a 212 conference. Now I think it's a ground zero. I can't tell you that in 1991 at conference, there was a proposal from the teachers to resection. Came back the next year, there wasn't a vote taken. In 95, we started computerized state FFA degree, one of the first in the nation to do that. Convention got moved in 95 as well, but I can't tell you about that. We came from the Assembly Hall to Springfield. Can't tell you that in 96 we established a chapter president award in FFA, and I can't tell you that we added a 5th state officer. I can't tell you about the STAR conference being established in about 98 to help develop your section officer teams. And I can't tell you that National Convention moved in 1999 from a long-time home in Kansas City to Louisville. But I can tell you about one of the most important and probably impactful things that happened in that decade. And that was when Frank and I came back from National Convention, and on Monday we walked in the office about usual, tireder than usual. And our landlord walked in and said, "I got good news and bad news." What's the good news? I sold the building. Keep in mind, we'd been there since 1970. Every paper left over that was duplicate or printed had been stored upstairs. I said, "Okay, was that the good news or the bad news?" And he said, "That was the good news." I said, "What's the bad news?" "Well, they'd really like to be in here at Thanksgiving or just after." That was November 17th that we were told that. So 3 days later, the administrative council got together on a phone call. We updated them, and they, in their wisdom, established a long-range facility committee that would do the work, the research, and make decisions. And I think several of those folks are in here, and they deserve being recognized. I'm just going to read the list. Marilyn Engelbrick was on there from the foundation. Bill Kittinger and John Cabot were on there for IAVAT. Penny Whitler was on there for IACCAI. Parker was on there for FFA, and Parker Bain, I should say both names, shouldn't I? Karen Frazee was on there for the foundation along with Nelson Thorpe. The immediate need was to acquire facilities to replace where we had been, and some spot big enough to store all that paper. We signed a contract in January and moved mid-January to an old elevator office about 2 blocks away, and there was a reason they built a new one for themselves. At the end of that month, the administrative council decided it was time to conduct a study in finding the best location city-wise for the center. And I'll skim through some of this because I'm going long, but the communities that we sent letters of invitation to were Leroy, Springfield, Clinton, Monticello, El Paso, Bloomington, Champaign, Decatur, and Roanoke, in hopes of staying there and keeping our current staff. They were contacted by letter. Board came back together later that month, or in May rather, and we narrowed the facility or the community down to Decatur, Champaign, Springfield, or Bloomington Normal, simply because Central Illinois, locale, where were we doing our business? In July, the Long Range Committee got together and visited those communities, toured sites, both existing buildings and potential sites to build on, And those sites have been identified by their local chambers of commerce and such. Not lose my spot. In 98, a lot of dates, and I'm throwing them out quick. We ended up identifying a a capital campaign committee. Peggy Kay was a broadcaster. Orion Samuelson, another broadcaster, and Ellen Greenwood, a banker, agreed to help serve on that capital campaign. Moving on, Stan mentioned he got to sign away his first offspring for the loan on the building, or not on the building, just on the land, and that was $125,000 for a 40 square foot lot. 4 architectural firms were chosen to come in and do a presentation. We then selected it down to 2, Morton Buildings, and then Steckel Parker Architects. Steckel Parker ended up winning it, and they became our architectural firm. They employed Newman Alton, who became our contractors, and from there, we began work. It was really them doing the work and the oversight, because Frank and I were still working out of the Roanoke office at that time. We couldn't watch the day-to-day construction to make sure things were happening right. August 1, 2000 was the date was contracted for completion. It wasn't done. In early 99, I'll backtrack, and we did hold a groundbreaking before the contractors came in, and the officers at that time and section presidents got to take part in that, at least those that were in the area and attending the ag business day that day. We ended up moving, though, without a certificate of occupancy. They had not yet approved the building for occupancy, and there were some minor things to be done, but we moved in on Labor Day weekend of 2000, about a month after the completion date was supposed to be done. We had a lot of disputes over the next 3 months trying to get stuff wrapped up, and quite honestly, there were some things that probably we should have still held firmer on, but we needed to operate a business and serve the teachers and the students. In 2001, on March 16th, we held a ribbon cutting. A year later, almost to the day, we held a time capsule burying, and Jesse, his team was on that. I think it was an experience. The teachers began to get concerned. We still had a debt, and it was 2004 or 2002, and a conference that came up in 2002. And they appointed some ad hoc committees, and they started meeting with staff, and I think the Capital Campaign Committee, and I'm proud to say that that debt was retired early in 2004. We appreciate the help and all the role that IAVAT played in that. I would say 2 things in kind of wrap this up. The land, the construction, the furnishings, the moving, and the capital campaign gave you a $347,000 building. So if you ever want to know what it was. The expenses for the capital campaign, if you want to take that out, was $147,000. So you got about a $1.2 million building at that time. Loan was paid off in 5 years. Not because of Frank and not because of me, but because of you. Because of our supporters out there in the foundation. And I know I'm past my 3 minutes. But it should be noted that process was not without challenges. Some in all those ranks didn't believe we should own a building. I can tell you, I don't think you should rent for 20 years. Some felt we should have chosen another community. And we could argue Decatur was a good choice. Champaign might have been good. Bloomington would have been a good choice. but Springfield was selected. And just as a sidelight, it was the third study we had done, and every time Springfield was selected. Some didn't think the capital campaign was effective. Some felt we should have bought the adjoining property next door for an investment. Can't do both. Some felt we were building a Taj Mahal. Some felt there should have been a chance for more input. They were probably right. They may have all been right in their own way. However, the process to build the center is another example of how, despite disagreements, despite conflicting ideas, agriculture, education, family, especially IAVT, can come together, meet a challenge, and solve a problem. I'll leave it with that with one last reminder, which I should say, you are the only group, and never forget, you are the only group that can legislate. You can go in and politic. It is in your articles of incorporation. You are the only one member of the IAVT, of the AgEd family that can do that. Bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for all of your leadership over the years. I've been through Roanoke recently, and the old grain elevator where we had meetings where there was mice running across the floor is no longer there. It's been torn down. The original building we're in is now a funeral home, so I think we made the right decision. Next, we have Betsy Pesch. Betsy's a 35-year ag teacher, 5 of them at Wapella, 30 of them at Hartsburg-Emden, and she's still farming there where she raises cattle. And she's got a little perspective on the female ag teacher revolution as it came in through the 1970s and 80s. And so, Betsy?
Good evening, everyone. I'm also going to cover the 2000s that Jim left out. He went into my decade a little bit, okay? So anyway, one of the things that starting the beginning of the 2000s was the IAVAT bought a Scantron machine, okay? All right. So that meant that all of us ag teachers thought we're free, okay? No more sitting around tables in crowded rooms, scoring cards, griping and groaning next to the people that you're sitting by, or maybe just gossiping. But at the same time, at least I was thinking, what the heck are my kids doing right now while I'm sitting in this room for 3 hours and they're done with the contest? What are they doing? Okay, well, you're not going to know that till you get back to your bus and hope that they're there. Okay, well, the IAVT also started a web page. All right, so we are getting into, the electronic age here. Scantron machine, web page. Okay, then we go next year later, 2001, 2002. Kind of like Ron Rice was saying in the 80s, we started having a budget crisis. State of Illinois, a budget crisis. Go figure, doesn't things go round and round and round? Okay, Governor George Ryan announced that the AgEd line item and career and technical education would be removed from the budget. So the 2000s saw a substantial decrease in funding to schools, and some schools were either closing their ag programs or possibly consolidating. Our relationship with IACTE was tenuous at the time. And of course, as Jim said, and I'm not going to go too much into it, paying for the new FFA Center was a topic of attention. Okay, 2002, 2003, incentive funding cuts with a tight state budget, so that $1 million that Ron was talking about kind of went down a little bit. There was also a possibility of cut in Carl Perkins funding, which is your federal funding. Is that still around today? Okay, good. All right, still here. Okay. So then in 2003, 2004, our governor finally endorsed ag education. However, on the national level, and please don't ask me which Bush this is, but President Bush stated that vocational education is ancient history and proposed eliminating Perkins funding. Okay, needless to say, that did not happen. And then our June conference was moved from Decatur to Northfield Center, and since that time, it's been here, and I'm sure other places as well. Okay, 2004, 2005, the Ag Ed line item stayed in the budget. Perkins funding stayed as well. Our relationship with IACTE improved, and I was involved in this because I was an IAVAT director in the early 2000s. Resectioning was brought back up, and we actually got where I'm thinking where you guys are at today is what was approved back then. But I was in on that, to say the least. Okay, 2005, 06, resectioning was approved, and of course the FFA Center was paid off. 06, 07, Ron Rice retires from ISBE. And Dr. Ken McFeeters, if any of you remember him, he retired from the U of I. He was our horticulture specialist in ITCS. And then our Ag Ed line item saw an increase of $500,000 to $2,881,000. I will tell some of you people out there, I will tell you all you people out there, when the first time we got the money in the mail, we got, my school, we got, I think it was $1,000. I thought I died and went to heaven, okay? Because that was money that I could use for my program. And most school districts were not even thinking about giving you that money. So like I said, when that check or notice came and I got $1,000, I thought, party time, all right, you know? All right, so the rest of the 2000s, IAVAT, the FFA is back on strong settings. And I think the work of the IAVAT, FFA Foundation, Alumni Administrative Council, FKIL, IK, ILK, ITCS, and all the others, the office staff, and the dedication of the entire Ag Ed family, we survived the 2000s. Okay, I'm going to switch a little bit here. Joellen Seaman, Mary Barnes, Diane Lotion, and I know there's some others out here that fit in that boat, but they are trailblazers. Career agriculture educators, women who I greatly admire, awesome teachers, fantastic agriculture and FFA programs. As I look about this audience, I see a lot of Joellens, Marys, and Dianes. Since I retired 8 years ago, I have kept watch on the IAVAT leadership, and many women have stepped up to the plate to assume leadership roles. And I encourage you to keep it up. If you're asked to be a section IAVAT officer, district director, state officer, FFA board of directors, foundation board, or any of the K committees, do it. Please do it. Yes, it takes away that extremely valuable time teachers rely on. But serving as an IAVAT leader has its rewards as well. The knowledge you gain concerning agriculture education might involve the politics, the funding, and agriculture across the nation, and also getting down to really know your fellow officers. Personally, I served as a district director, and I can still hear stories that Frank Dry and Jim Kraft told about various NAAE conferences. And the stories had nothing to do with the NAAE happenings, but the people who went to the happenings. It's just like when you take your kids to national convention or state convention, and you get home, you think you know what happened. No, you don't find out what happens till a year later. Then that's when you find out what happens. And that's kind of what Frank and Jim, were reminiscing about as we sat around, tables like this. 42 years ago, I had no clue what I was getting into when I jumped aboard this all-male ship. I stuck with it with no thoughts of jumping overboard. There have been many great women leaders since Joellen, Mary, Diane, and myself come along, and I'm positive there will be many, many more trailblazers. Wishing the IAVAT another fantastic 100 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. I think I remember the reason for the Scantron machine, because Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had a judging contest with the wrong key one time, and we all showed up in Roanoke, and we had to go back and grade every card. And that time, I think we said we needed a Scantron. So, was what? Yeah. But thank you, and thank you, Betsy, for that. I have fond memories of those ladies as well as I started my career. So thank you again. Our final speaker tonight is one who I have a great amount of respect to as the future of agriculture education in Illinois. I'd like to bring up Mrs. Kendra Callahan. She is a native of Cambridge, Illinois, and currently an agriculture teacher at Kewanee High School. She has a great variety of experiences that she excels in, including coaching a national collegiate judging team, being a case teacher, being a champion team roper. She's a premier tap and ballet dancer. Please welcome Black Hawk College's outstanding alumni for this year, Kendra Callahan.
Good evening. Mr. Kraft, at one point, I was a freshman in high school, and I considered you a lifesaver because you purchased pizza at the state horse judging contest on a day that I was sure I was going to starve to death. And so I'm so thankful that you did that. But here just a couple minutes ago, you criticized your predecessors for talking too long. So, Mr. Kraft, buckle up. Legends. In the event that you believe those that spoke before me were legends, I would ask you to rise and stay standing. Now, I want you to consider the people that are standing around you. And if you believe that any of them fit the description of a legend, a notorious person, especially in a particular field, I ask you to join me in applauding them. Thank you. I agree. We, my friends, are surrounded by legends, and this is a title that I think we should embrace because I promise our future is dependent on each and every one of us being just that, legends. For the next few minutes, I want to share a little bit about what it's been like to be a teacher in the 2010s, but maybe more importantly, where I believe we are going. If you taught in the past 12 years, you have experienced the rapid growth in technology, potentially even completing a virtual fetal pig dissection or hosting your chapter banquet over Zoom. You taught with a mask and you used Clorox wipes for more than cleaning up a soils lab that went wrong. We hosted plant sales on Cheddar Up and became experts in contactless flower pickups. You embraced AET and the ping of cell phones in your space, which, by the way, I forgot to take a selfie. Our students elected the first all-female major state officer team. We have thrown out the playbook. PowerPoints are outdated, and agriculture education embraces progressive learning models more than ever. We may witness TikToks being created, and we may even make a few ourselves. We had state convention outdoors. We market our programs with social media, and the vibe in our spaces is set by music. Put your hands up, it's a party in the USA. 2, we don't talk about Bruno, no. Yes. And these tunes may be coming from our computer speakers, Bluetooth microphones, or the dreaded AirPod. Which, by the way, did you know that you can't tell if somebody is listening to music in their AirPod? That's like a mystery to my students. Every hour when they're walking out, hey, take the AirPod. Miss Callahan, I'm not listening to any music. Who would know? Who would know? I don't know. Before exiting the van for FFA trips, I tell my students the same 3 things every time. Number 1, have fun. Number 2, be adaptable and flexible because both of those skills are highly employable. And number 3, remember that you represent more than yourselves. These 3 statements, I believe, are true for those of us that have taught in the 2010s. We learned to put our lesson plans on Etch-a-Sketch because it was highly likely that everything was going to change. We cannot predict the future, but let's consider some of the following. Where will we get new teachers? How will ag programs be funded? And what areas of instruction will be part of tomorrow's ag programs? My path to agriculture education was not a traditional one. I am proud to represent our educators that are licensed in the state of Illinois with stipulations, commonly known as ELS. And at this time, I would invite them to stand up, please. If you have an educator license with stipulations, please stand. Thank you. All of us, like all of you, are ag educators by choice and not by chance. And like each of you, I consider myself the future of agriculture education. This is a role that I'm not only passionate about, but I am obsessed. I am obsessed with ag education. If we are going to fill the 109 positions we have open this year, we cannot rely only on the post-secondary institutions. We can't. It has to come from ourselves. We have to expect us to cast that vision first for future agriculture educators. Look for the Kindras in your classroom. Look for the Kindras in your communities. They exist. Recruitment needs to go beyond our own 4 walls, and we must be intentional about those conversations. In 2022, 109 position openings, 17 of which are unfilled. 34 agriculture education graduates from our state institutes. So far, 17 vacancies have been filled by ELS professionals. I love to eat vegetables, and I consider myself to have a very diverse palate. When breaking bread with who I might refer to as my more meat and potato loving friends, they sometimes give me grief that the protein on my plate is not red in color. And my response to them is that there is room at this table for everyone. The traditional producer in agriculture no longer looks the same, and neither does the ag educator. Tomorrow's ag teachers will need to be ready to push the envelope on technology, sustainability, vertical food production practices, understanding environmental impacts and commodities, not just what's available locally, but the global economic impact of our commodities. Our students will have access to dual credit and science credit for graduation, sitting in our seats. Welding and technical skills, a huge deficit in trained personnel was made evident in the pandemic, and we can prepare those students to succeed in skilled careers. Science, mathematics, and the ability to infer the information and communicate will be laced throughout the future of our ag ed curriculum. To put it simply, it is us that need to lead the change in delivering critical thinking skills to our students today and tomorrow. Director Costello shared that 1 in 4 jobs in Illinois are directly related to agriculture. That is what I call job security. Our job is more important than producing the future veterinarian, politician, or corporate ladder climber. Our future is not only our job security, but the faith that ag education is important for every consumer. Because of the work of our lobbyists, legislators, members of this organization, ISBE, our ag ed line item in the state's budget will directly impact our classrooms and ourselves. The barriers that will be removed and the opportunities created for students because of this funding source is outstanding. I'm so pumped for affiliation, like I can't even hardly stand it. Anyone that I know that had a hand in that or that I have witnessed celebrate that today or last week, if I have not shaken your hand yet, please let me do so. I'm thankful for the grants that have helped close the salary gap. If it wasn't for those that worked on that before, I would not be here. Funding for our programs is on a strong trajectory. And please also don't forget our corporate partners that are looking to us for the next leader too. 4 + 4 is 8. That's what I do to my students if I think they're gonna cry. Thank you for the gift. Last week at state convention, a dear friend of mine shared Bob Goff's words with me. People will grow where they are loved. I want to share with you one of my initial interactions with Illinois ag teachers. I was volunteering as a judge at the District 1 Ag Sales CDE, and a corporate peer at the time said, "You should meet Lisa O." So I walked into the scoring room and introduced myself to her. I shared that I was considering making a career change. Lisa looked at me and she smiled, and she encouraged me to weigh my options, and then asked if I had met Mr. Curry. I turned around to a huge smile, ready to escort me to my judging assignment. On our walk down the hallway, I shared the same statement about considering a career change. At the door, Mr. Curry shook my hand, and he said, "I hope I see you again someday, Kendra." A year later, when I arrived at the ag sales contest, this time as an ag teacher, the most precious and intentional hug awaited me. If you taught in the 2010s and ever met Ed, you were loved, and I guarantee that you grew because of that. IAVAT members and guests, we will grow where we are loved, and the first way we do that is by loving those around us and those who we intentionally invite to show up next. You may not consider yourself a legend, but I promise someone else does.
The future sure looks bright with people like Kendra Callahan. 4 + 4 is 8. Thank you, Ron, Frank, Jim, and Betsy, and Kendra. As you can see, we've come a long way in agriculture education. If you're not sitting up a little bit prouder tonight than you were before we got here, you probably weren't listening, because we have a heck of a past, and we're going to have a heck of a future. The Fan Mill newsletter is now an easy-to-use, complete one-stop website for all in agriculture education. We now have been able to use agriculture classes for college entrance. Our students now have a choice to either give reasons or not to give reasons. One thing that has changed is that this is still a grassroots organization that's founded by its members who all shared in its leadership. It's a sacrifice and commitment of its members to become leaders that has maintained the viability of this organization. Leadership of this organization occurs at all levels, not just those that became president or vice president or section chairman. If you've served as a president of this organization, please stand. If you have, yes. If you have served as a district, stay standing, please stay standing. If you have served as a district director of this organization, please stand. If you have served as a section chairman of this organization, please stand. If you have served in any other section office, such as a fair manager or an advocacy chairman or anything else, public relations chairman, please stand. For the young members who are still sitting, we will expect you, the ones, to be standing at the part of this program during the 125th celebration 20 years from now. In 1922, the founders of this organization could only legally toast with water, milk, or a soft drink. So in conclusion tonight, let's raise our glass, the beverage of your choice, and toast those agriculture teachers in 1922 who formed this organization, to those leaders and members who have helped maintain the extremely relevant and important organization that it is today, and to those leaders who will lead us into the next 100 years. Hear, hear. Thank you. Have a great night.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt Meyer. I'm the ag teacher at Mendota High School, and I have the honor of serving at the pleasure of President Ulrich for tonight's Master of Ceremonies. At this time, since we are running a little behind schedule, I'm going to go ahead and go right into inviting Mr. Gary Oakes, the current Secretary Treasurer of the IAVAT Board of Directors, to come forward for an invocation.
Please assume an attitude of reflection. As we look back on this past year, it's been a year of challenges both professionally and personally, and a year of successes both professionally and personally. We take these next few days to renew friendships, make connections, and grow professionally. We've pushed each other, celebrated each other, and helped each other. Sometimes we may have even cried and mourned with each other. But the thing is that we were with each other. As an Ag Ed family, in addition to our students and our communities, we need to continue to focus on ourselves, our families, and each other. As we go forward, let us use this food to the nourishment of our bodies as we go forward working with youth and future agriculturalists. Thank you to all involved in the process of getting the food from the farm to the table. At this time, please take 15 seconds silently to reflect on your chosen method. Thank you.
At this time, if the servers are ready, I believe we will have the meal. So.
special meals?
Okay, once again, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's awards banquet. As I mentioned previously, my name is Matt Meyer. I'm the ag teacher at Mendota High School. I'd like to begin this evening with a couple of introductions. With the following people, when their name is read, please stand to be recognized. We'd like to start by recognizing our current board of directors. President is Mrs. Lisa Ulrich, Scales Mound. Vice President Donna Page, Rochelle. Past President Ann Petrowski, DuQuoin. Secretary Treasurer Gary Oakes, University of Illinois. Illinois Association of Community College Ag Instructors Representative Doug Robb, Wabash Valley College. Your District 1 directors, Jason Kilburn, Monmouth Roseville. District 2, Liz Harris, Normal. District 3, Steve Bike, Liberty. District 4, Kirsten Wyatt, Paxton Buckley Loda. District 5, Josh Berg, Okawville. Your FFA Executive Secretary, Mrs. Mindy Bunselmeyer. IAVAT Executive Director, Mr. John Edgar. All of our wonderful Illinois FFA Center staff, including our summer interns. With us this evening representing Farm Bureau, Vanessa Wright and Mary Kloffenstein. Special guests of our president this evening, Mr. Kurt Ulrich, Mrs. Jordan Ulrich Brown, and Mrs. Jeanette Grindley. We would also like all of our those retiring this year, teachers to please stand and be recognized. And as we've already had an opportunity to recognize past presidents, we just ask that all currently retired ag teachers please stand if you're able to be recognized. As we prepare to recognize our award recipients this evening, I see that there is a photo backdrop set up over by the wall to my left there. I would assume that they would like pictures with award recipients before you leave this evening. So please, after you've received your award, I would recommend heading over there for a picture. The first awards we have to get out this evening are NAAE awards. President Ulrich will assist in distributing those awards. Our first NAAE award recognition this evening is for Outstanding Teacher, which this year is Mr. Mark Stieber, Richland County High School. Our Outstanding Early Career Teacher this year, Mr. Trent Tabor, Cambridge High School. Our outstanding middle secondary ag ed program award recipients this year is Sycamore High School, Mr. Christian Thurwanger and Mrs. Kara Pointer. And our sincerest apologies, Mrs. Pointer, for not including her in the program. Our Teacher Turn the Key recipient award this year goes to Kendra Callahan, Kewanee High School. Boy, Section 3 really likes stretching this thing out, don't they? The Teacher Mentor Award this year goes to Mr. Mike White, Paxton Buckley Loda High School. The Outstanding Service Citation this year goes to Mr. Jeff Meyerhofer, Seneca High School. Outstanding Cooperation Award this year goes to Mrs. Jennifer Waters, FCAE. And this year's Lifetime Achievement Award goes to someone who I have always looked up to, Mr. Steve Bike, Liberty High School. At this time, we will begin our service awards, beginning with our 5-year service awards presented by Mrs. Donna Page and Mr. Doug Robb.
Good evening. I have the opportunity to recognize our 5th-year teachers tonight. As Kendra said in her remarks, a lot of you in this room are legends, and you are legendary to a lot of us. But it takes those young teachers to grow into us more seasoned teachers and become legendary for others. So we hope to see you all back here to read your name for the 10-year. So with that, Caitlin Eggins from Tri-City. And if you guys want to come up, Doug will have your pen on that side of the podium. Stephanie Alleman from United. TJ Bolin from South Central. Amy DeGoyler from Bismarck Henning. Patrick Desire from Chicago High School for the Agricultural Sciences. Barbara French, the Illinois School for the Visually Impaired. Amanda Goff from Kansas. Michaela Greathouse from Grayville. Daphne Javillo from Alton. Buddy Haas from Central Burlington. Joe Heavner from Amboy. Deanna Jacobs from Rochelle. Hayden Kincaid from Red Hill. Max Look from Farmington. Austin McAllister from Pinckneyville. Mitch Miller, Midwest Central. Marista Modulin from Waterloo. Emily Newcomer for Durand. Stacy Ricard, Salt Fork. Savannah Riegler, Clinton. Sydney Romero from Warren. Hannah Rustman from El Paso Gridley. Doug Schilling from Cahokia. Sarah Schoon from Putnam County. Samantha Seamer from Edinburgh. Michelle Stewart, Yorkville Christian. Corey Sutton, NCOE. Katrina Van Dyke, North Clay. And Max Williquette, Chicago High School for the Agricultural Sciences. Please join me in giving these 5-year members a round of applause.
Presenting our 10-year service awards will be Miss Ann Petrowski and Mr. Josh Berg.
These next individuals have outlasted their 7-year itch and we're hoping are in it for the long haul. So at 15 years, we can read as many names that are on here now. So Josh will give you your pins over here. So when I call your name, please come up, grab your pins. Angie Bain, Tremont. Jennifer Barker, Stewartton, Strasburg. Casey Bolin, FK. Michelle Bukite, Carbondale. Stephen Clodfelter, Edwards County. Caitlin Cray, New Berlin. Nita Geiling, Mount Carmel. Matt Hampton, Northwestern. Krista Howard, Hudsonville. Wyatt McGrew, Macomb. Sarah Peterson, DeKalb. Coleman Sappington, Cumberland. Rick Walter, Johnston City. And Brian Young, Bunker Hill. Congratulations.
Our 15-year service awards will be presented by Miss Liz Harris and Miss Kirsten Wyatt.
I'm excited to read the names of those individuals who will be receiving their 15-year pin, and you can pick those up from Liz off to the side. So let's congratulate Miles Allen, Illini Central. Tim Arnold, Galatia. Matt Belusco, Litchfield. Mike Butler, Athens. Kristen Crouch, Marshall. Matt Elam, Mulberry Grove. Daryl Kezlowski, Waltonville. Allison McGrew, Bushnell Prairie City. Darcy Nicolny, St. Joseph Ogden. Callie Parr, Villa Grove. Emily Perry, Pana. Rylan Rusk, Olney. Jason West, Vienna.
Presenting our 20-year service awards, Mr. Gary Oakes and Mr. Jason Kilburn.
Looks like we got a bit of a backup going on over there. Yeah. Tell a joke. I see that. What? They're good? Okay. Okay. Is this on? So we're going to go ahead and recognize the 20-year recipients. They will hopefully make it 5 more years, be able to get their 25-year plaque in 5, whenever, yeah, you can do the math. So for 20 years, we have Sam DeCounter, West Prairie. We have the Wendell Von Kenkel Oaks from Iroquois West. We have Julie Reynolds for Chicago High School for Agricultural Sciences. And Dr. Jay Solmonson from Illinois State University.
Lisa's jumping up to get the award. Okay, our next award recipients have reached the 25-year milestone. This entitles them to come up and share some remarks if they would like to as they receive their awards. We would like to thank Illinois Farm Bureau, specifically Ms. Vanessa Wright and Mrs. Mary Kloffenstein, for being here to present the 25-year awards this year. 25 years ago, the year was 1997. Just a little recap since this is a history year. The movie Titanic happened to make its premiere that year. Dolly the Sheep became a thing. The song Just to See You Smile by Trim McGraw was released. Ironically, as we talked earlier, things become cyclical. In 1997, 25 years ago, they killed thousands of birds in Hong Kong because of the bird flu. Gas prices, this is an interesting fact, gas prices were $1.22 a gallon. It cost you $4.59 to go see a movie at that time. For those of us who remember this series, it was also the year that Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was released. And it is the year that The Simpsons became the longest running primetime animated series. So without any further ado, our 25-year recipients, and again, if they'd like to share any remarks, they are welcome to. Our first recipient is Mr. Rusty Hilst, Greenview. Our next 25-year recipient, Mr. Eric Reuter, El Paso Gridley. Our next 25-year recipient, Mr. Brian Stahl, Geneseo.
I'm going to make this short in the interest of time. Can everybody hear me? No? Okay, I'm going to eat it now. I'm going to make this short in the interest of time. I'm going to introduce my family. I'm going to tell you a little story, leave you with some words of advice or encouragement, and then be out, drop the mic, whatever. So, in order of experience, my family members, and please stand up when I call your name. My mom is Patricia Stahl. My sister is Penny Stahl. And my better half, my better 3/4, I guess, is Terry Van Hersel. Okay. I will accept this. It's an honor, and I humbly do this. And when I say humbly, it's because I look out here and there's leadership out the yazoo in this room. I can't believe the mentors that I have seen in my 25 years, my short 25 years. The story I'm going to tell is on Betsy Pesh. Where's Betsy? Okay. Betsy and I would routinely meet at state ag issues contest. One year she didn't have a team. I saw her later and I asked her why. She said, we just didn't have the gene pool. So I knew that we also taught biology. I will tell the young people in this room, 25 years goes by so fast when you're having fun that don't blink because it's going to happen to you. Thank you.
Our final 25-year recipient, Mr. Jamie Van Dyke, Olney.
Thank you. Few things I would like to say is 25 years goes really, really fast. And had several student teachers over the years, several students that we have impacted. I just want to say a few things that I'm going to bring up that Randy Meyer said a few years ago, and a lot of you know Randy that passed away. Randy always said that there was the ones that in the front of the class that it didn't matter who it was, but it was that young man or that young woman in the back that it made it matter to. That's what I gravitated to, and those are the kids I try to impact the most. And I know Randy's not with us. He's here in spirit. But I just want to say that makes a difference. You young teachers, you find that kid in the back of the room, make that difference with them. Those are the ones that make the matter. Thank you. Thank you for the 25 years. Had a ton of student teachers, and that's a world of difference that we enjoy, we love doing, we love helping people. The crew in D5, there's a bunch of you, love you to death, and thank you for help pushing me for what I am and who I am today, because I started being nobody and nothing, and that makes it matter for me and for the rest of you. And ultimately, it comes down to this. Those kids in the classroom are why we're here. So, thank you.
Once again, please help me in congratulating all our 25-year Service Award recipients and thanking Illinois Farm Bureau for sponsoring. The 30-year Service Award is sponsored by Country Financial. To my knowledge, no one is here this evening to represent them, but please keep our sponsors in mind. The year was 1992. Johnny Carson made his final appearance on The Tonight Show. Whitney Houston released her cover of the Dolly Parton hit, I Will Always Love You. Gas was $1.05 a gallon. The Mall of America opened, TWA went bankrupt, and Aladdin and Home Alone 2 were in theaters. Our 30-year Service Award recipient is Carrie Travis Oblong.
Mr. Van Dyke kind of took my speech because I was thinking what I was going to say with everything that's been going on tonight was just reminiscing about, my last 30 years in the classroom. And we've been talking about over at our table, I still use film strips sometimes. And it's like, my gosh, I just can't get away from some of the favorite things I guess I like. And it's like, okay, I still use that. And And even the projection unit, the kids go, oh my God, they come in as a freshman, they go, what's that thing? And so I said, oh, you soon learn. But, you know, and every once in a while I'll bring that out. But just like he said too, and like we've talked about at our table, you know, it's those kids that don't excel in football or basketball or, you know, anything else that, but they are the ones who maybe just because of their home life or whatever, they look so much up to us. And, you know, they want to be with us all the time, or every time the ag door is open, they want to be there. So, I mean, that's what is really, really important, I think. And especially you new teachers, you know, you've just got to work with them and, you know, just put your best foot forward with them all the time. And then another thing is just you, as, you know, I've been doing this for 30 years, and you're going to have your own families too. And I know we come to this and have fun and everything like that, but you still have to, you know, make it balance out, or it's not going to work for you. But, you know, always put your family out there first too. And that's hard to do when you're, you know, you're supposed to do 4 or 5 activities this week with FFA things. But, you know, try to balance that out as well as you can, and you'll be successful. And standing up here, when you turn around twice, you'll be up here on this stage for 30 years too. So thank you very much to IAVAT and for giving me this great job that I've pretty much loved for 30 years. Thanks.
Let's hear it for our 30-year recipient. The year is 1987. The first Simpsons cartoon show appeared on the Tracy Ullman Show. Full House made its debut. Gas was 89 cents a gallon. Reagan gave his famous Berlin Wall speech, and 3 Men and a Baby, and We Learned to Not Put Baby in a Corner came out that year. Our 35-year recipient is Miss Lucille Shaw, Chicago High School for Agricultural Sciences. The next recipients, if they could just stand at their seat and be recognized, that would be appreciated. The year is 1982. Gandhi made its premiere in theaters. Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder released the hit Ebony and Ivory. Gas was 91 cents per gallon. The first artificial heart transplant occurred. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial was dedicated. Michael Jackson's Thriller album was released. And Howard Heavner began his teaching career. Howard Heavner, SI, Southern Illinois University. I'm sorry I misspoke. Howard, if you'd like to share some remarks, you're welcome to.
Okay, I did want to take just a few moments to share a few thoughts. First, I'll take credit for the mistakes that I made. I made 3 of them in that bio in that book. First mistake is I didn't ask my wife to look it over first. Sorry, dear. Second one was innocent enough because I was writing that bio, we had 5 grandchildren. And by the time I got down to the bottom of the paragraph, we had 6. So if you read it and it says I got 5 in one spot and 6 in the other, that's why that happened. Now, the last mistake I made, I'm awful proud of that one. Because if you look in there, I may have misspelled more than one word. But the one I misspelled, if I had to choose a word to misspell, I'm proud that I misspelled politician. Because I do serve as a mayor in Valmeyer, for 20 years. And I'm pretty proud of that too. But as we move along, I did teach in Valmeyer for 33 years. Something I was very proud of. Big part of my career. I had the opportunity to retire for about 2 weeks, I think, before I was offered a position at SIU, for which I was very excited to have the opportunity to work with students at SIU. And the first week went really well. Then Dr. Pence told me, hey, you got to register for some classes there, buddy. And I had almost completely forgotten that I was kind of a graduate student and I was supposed to go to school too. So my half-time job kind of quickly turned into a full-time job, which is fine with me. But anyway, I want to say that the time that I spent with students of Valmar or SIU, and that's another intimidating part to this tonight. Usually I look across the room and I know a lot of these folks, but they're not folks that I looked at in the classroom repeatedly for a couple semesters. Okay, and I'm just hoping, and I'll just say it as straight and genuine as I can, that they're as pleased to see me as I am to see them. Okay, and I'll just leave that one at that. Okay, and I will also say life is very confusing, of which I don't have near all the answers, but I will say this. I have never thought about being happy that I was mad. Now, some people I've worked with know that I can get kind of fired up at times, and we had a day, you know, this whole COVID thing, and I'm not complaining about that because that's the way it was. But I had to teach something to these students about Google Classroom as an example, and things that, quite honestly, as an ag teacher, you're told right away. You're going to teach stuff you don't know anything about. Okay, by God, you figure it out and you do it. Okay, so I had it pretty well figured out. Wasn't too bad. We'd ask a guest speaker to come in, and that was a complete train wreck. She was an official Google Classroom expert, no problem whatsoever with her credentials, but our machines didn't want to play nice. And I was incredibly frustrated because the first thing she wanted to do was do a Google poll to what they wanted to learn. And we couldn't get the thing to work with our computer systems and networking and whatever. But I got real frustrated. And by the end of the class, I don't want to say I was downright mad, but I was getting pretty close to it. And by the time I got to Murfreesboro, which is about 15 minutes, I was thinking, man, why are you so mad? And I had to smile, and I became happy. Quite a contrast, but I was very happy I was mad. Because you know what? That taught me that I still cared about what I was doing. Because if I didn't give a darn, I wasn't even worried. I wouldn't have got mad. What the heck? I just kept on driving, right? But I felt much better that day, and went back to doing my job with a little bit more of a happy attitude than what I had previously possessed. Now, I do want to thank the IAVAT for giving me this plaque and the opportunity, and you heard a lot of people speak about leadership. You can't teach leadership in a classroom, okay? Leadership is born right here. When you're standing up here and you're looking at people and you're expressing your thoughts as you know and you want to express them, and I don't care if you use perfect grammar or not, but by golly, people get up at these meetings and at your conference and they can make their opinion clear, okay? And they have an opportunity to express their opinion, and then there'll be a vote taken. And it's going to be a majority vote, and get over it. It's done, okay? Because there was a few times I was on the top side of them. There was a few times I was not. But I still had the opportunity to express myself clearly, and I do want to thank this organization for allowing me to work with people here that are incredible leaders. We've said that and heard that already. But that's where it happens. Okay, it doesn't happen in a book. And as mentioned earlier, it doesn't happen in PowerPoint. Now, I also have to thank, we could call this, I guess, a 40th anniversary. And I want to take a moment or two to kind of explain myself here. I came into education when the word engage meant something different, okay? They had to explain it to me. If you're going to engage your students, that means they got to be paying attention to you. And I'm thinking, hell, I thought that's what teaching meant. Okay, it's kind of like, and I thought about this, when you jump in your car, you don't engage your car, do you? Okay, you drive it. Okay, you get in the classroom, you teach. Okay, and if they're not looking at you, they're not paying attention, why do we need the extra word? But anyway, engagement, and if you wonder why in the world I'm dwelling on this, I got engaged to one person 43 years ago, and I met her 45, and my life has changed forever. And I'd like to ask my wife to please stand up, because I'm going to thank her most of all. Because I'll say one last thing, if we didn't have her standing over there, I'm not sure what kind of a person would be up here talking to you right now and what he'd be saying, okay? Thanks a lot, appreciate it. Now I'll think of something else to say in 5 years.
All right, the year was 1977. Star Wars opened in theaters. The Apple II computer went on sale. Elvis left the building. Gas was 65 cents a gallon, and Tom Brady was born and proceeded to ruin football for everyone. This year's 45-year Service Award recipient, and if they just stand to be recognized at their place, is Mr. Larry Littlefield, retired Gibson City Melvin Sibley. The year is 1972. Gas was 55 cents a gallon. The Space Shuttle program was introduced. The Godfather made its premiere in theaters, and MASH made its TV debut, and Shaquille O'Neal came booming into the world. Our 50-year recipient is Mr. Alan Ritter, retired North Clay. Please stand and be recognized. The year is 1967. The public broadcasting service was created. We had the first heart transplant, which would lead up to the first synthetic heart transplant, which I've already mentioned. Gas was 33 cents a gallon. A movie ticket was $1.25. And the world's first ATM opened, as well as Aretha Franklin released the song Respect.
First of all, I'm glad I'm not the only one that has computer troubles. On your biography, my two grandchildren's listed their ages, had 5 years to their ages. My computer and Lori's never did get along. I don't know, they didn't like each other, I guess. We fought back and forth, and we finally give up, and I told her the things I seen real quick, and that's it. I just want to recognize my wife. I think she's been at 49 of these. She missed one. I don't understand why. Our daughter was born the year in between the time in between FFA convention and IAVAT conference. She did have blood clot too, so that maybe excuses her. I just want to say for those of you who are young teachers, you've got a lot of experienced teachers in your section asking for help. Those that are retired, nearing retirement, help those that are out there. I appreciate Section 23s. Always had me there and helping them when I could, and I appreciate that. And if you get disgusted, discouraged, take a set of those old ears and burn them a little bit. Thank you.
Our 55-year Service Award recipient, on behalf of the IAVAT, we'd like to congratulate Mr. John Abel, retired Teutopolis. The year is 1957. Whammo releases The Frisbee. The final new episode of I Love Lucy airs. Gas was 24 cents a gallon. The minimum hourly rate was $1 an hour. And Elvis's Jailhouse Rock was released. On behalf of the Illinois Association of Vocational Agriculture Teachers, it is my honor to recognize our 65-year Service Award recipient, Mr. Eldon Bud Opperly, retired Blackhawk East College. In just a second, I'm going to ask our president to come to the podium. I know you can't tell by looking at Lisa and I, but she is a few years older than I am. But I do have a couple months worth of teaching on her. I have always looked up to and respected and feared her from time to time. But I am certainly honored that she asked me to fill this role for her this evening. I know I'm probably not the first choice, but I'm honored to be considered in the same class with who would have been her first choice. So without further ado, to present her awards of merit and remarks, Mrs. Lisa Ulrich, IAVAT President.
Kendra, I'm pretty sure 2 plus 2 or 4 plus 4 is not going to work when Matt starts out that way. I was going to save that till the end. Before I start, I have some thank yous. I would like to thank the state office staff for all of the work that they do on our behalf, on my behalf, and I would especially like to thank Mr. Edgar for all of the work that he does for the Illinois Association of Vocational Agriculture Teachers. Until you're on the board, which I served 3 or 4 years as director, and then as vice president, and now as president. Until I got into this role, I had no idea the amount of work that is done at the state office on our behalf. I can't even begin to tell you the number of emails, how do you want me to take care of this, or what should we do, or is this okay? Constantly wanting to make sure that we have the best organization going forward. So thank you again very much. I would like to thank the officer teams that I have served with, both those that have retired off the board and to the current board that is sitting up here. You guys are fantastic to work with, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Members, thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to help direct the work of our organization. And thank you for sharing your thoughts, positive and negative, because those are the ways that we grow and the ways that we improve. I have a few individuals I'd like to recognize tonight with my awards of merit. The first two aren't here. Little story, short one, because I know, TikTok. I was hired because I had subbed in the Scales Mound District for several years. And at that time, many of my husbands and my friends were teaching in the district, and like, you got to come here and be the ag teacher. Like, this ag program, this should be booming, and it is not. You've got to come here and be the ag teacher. And I'm like, well, I can't be the ag teacher if there's already an ag teacher. Like, it doesn't work that way. And I was covering a maternity leave for a very good friend of mine, and the principal walks in the back of the classroom. Great, what do I do now? And he's like, so tomorrow, how would you like to teach ag? I'm like, well, I still got a week and a half on this maternity leave. What do you mean? Like, I can't do both. I really can't. And he's like, no, we'd like to move you there full time. Oh, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, the ag teacher just picked up and walked out. Like on the 10th of October, he just like picked up everything and walked out the door, said, I'm done. Oh, okay, well, that'd be great. So here's what my ag program looked like. It was from 8 to 11:30, and in 8 to 11:30, that's at Scales Mound, that's, at that time was 3 class periods. I had 9 classes in 3 class periods. You wonder why the ag program wasn't working? Well, that might be it. So I might have scared the principal just a little bit, as Matt said, and insisted that, dude, I don't know what I'm doing, so perhaps you ought to pay me to be here the whole day. And I got him to agree to it. I don't know how, but I did. So I got the whole afternoon as prep, tried to work through things. We had things all figured out. We were going to change classes for next year. We were going to go a few more hours, and I kind of told him we had to go full time. And the superintendent at the time was no on that. Okay, so I applied for a job in different section. Got the job. Everything was going to be okay. We had our banquet, and I'm standing in the hallway after the banquet. Great banquet, great community support. Everything was all good and rosy, and everything was wonderful. And we're putting stuff away, and I'm standing there bawling. Those of you that know me know I'm a crier. Yep, I am. But this is bawling. This is like hot mess bawling. And one of the school board members comes up to me and says, what's the matter? What's the matter? I'm like, I love this program. I don't want to leave. This is the greatest school, blah, 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 blah. He's like, what do you mean you're going to leave? I'm like, well, the superintendent told me there was no money. She couldn't hire me full time. I can't drive over here and spend all day here and not, or half a day here and get paid. It's not going to work. And he's like, I didn't hear anything about that. Can't help it. Special board meeting was called Monday night, and I was hired full-time on Monday night, and Tuesday morning I had a full-time job. Now I had 2 full-time jobs, so it was pretty cool. So I chose to stay at the one where my heart definitely was. And so my first award of merit goes to Mr. Jim Storr, who was the board member who kind of saved my skin that night and made sure I was where I really needed and wanted to be. And my second award of merit goes to my principal, Dr. Matt Wiederholt, who in the strange world of administration has been my principal all 14 years that I've been at Scales Mound, has been a champion for my program and backs every single crazy idea that I have. So those would be my 2. They are both unable to be with me tonight. You know I'm going to do it. It's given. I'm going to do it. The next one goes to my mom and dad. My dad's not with us, hasn't been with us for 6 years. But my dad was the one who taught me to love agriculture. And ag was not my dad's first choice. He made that choice when family situation happened and he took over the farm. And even though it wasn't his first choice, he still taught his 3 daughters that agriculture is a beautiful place. And he was the first one to really tell me that a female could do anything she wanted at any point in time. And that was really, really powerful until I entered the world of the ag industry. And I don't mean teaching, because this is not my first career. It's not even my second or even my third. I started a national feed company, and the glass ceiling was there, folks. It's still there. The gal I started with, the same day we started, we graduated from college together. Just within the last month, she has finally been promoted to vice president. She has been at that company for over 25 years and was passed over, I can't tell you how many times, by individuals that did possibly not deserve that position as much as she did. And one day they said to me, after I had been there for 12 years, and my daughter, who's sitting in the crowd tonight also, she was very small at the time, and they said, hey, how about this new job? How about you leave Monday morning, and how about you come home like maybe Thursday night or Friday morning, and you can do paperwork on Friday, and we'll call that a week. I said, okay, how many weeks out of the office are you thinking? We're thinking all 4. At that time, the territory was from the East Coast to the Rocky Mountains. And I said, I don't think so. That's not going to work. So that was the end of career number 1. And my dad kind of, he was like, well, there's other options. My mom had been a business owner, and she was away from the farm several days a week. And so through trying to pick up some of the chores, we lived on a dairy farm, trying to help with some of the chores, and seeing that role model that my mom was, that you could do business for yourself and you could do anything that you wanted to do. She helped encourage my husband and I to run our landscaping business, which we ran together for, well, he ran for several years and then I helped. I was his chief bookkeeper for a lot of years before that. We also, we ran a garden center, and if you don't know anything about me, you know that dairy cows are my favorite animal, hands down. And I do love plants, but gosh bless, plants are dumb. Cattle can at least get up and walk to water. Plants can't do that. And Our garden center, we spent Father's Day one year. A plant shipment had come in and the company had sent the entire, all of the burning bushes that we had ordered were sent in pure sand, which meant they had to be watered constantly in pure sand in Northwest Illinois. And so we spent Father's Day afternoon repotting plants so that we wouldn't have to be there all of the time. And I looked at him and he looked at me and I'm like, how many more years do you want to do this? And I was like, I don't want to do this. This is not fun. So off went the garden center. And then one day we kind of looked at each other and also said, you know, if we're going to stay married, we probably shouldn't work together either. So that was when I started substitute teaching, and that kind of went all the way around. I was very blessed that I was an ag teacher while my daughter Jordan was going through high school. She was not my student. I thank Peggy Trone for pushing her to achieve the success that she did in her Lean Win chapter. I very much enjoyed watching her success and was very thankful that she understood why I was away from home at different activities and different events. And it took Kurt a little bit longer to see that and to know why I was gone so much and where I was going. And fortunately now, after these years, he's just like, when are you leaving? How long are you be gone? When are you coming home? Okay, I love you. Be safe. And I thank all three of them, my husband Kurt, my mom Jeanette, and my daughter Jordan, for standing behind me and supporting me and pushing me and loving me. I love you guys. And Kendra, I'm going to call you out just a little bit on that story you told about me. I look back on that contest and I'm pretty sure it was Parley Pro, and I'm pretty sure I was on the FFA board, and I'm pretty sure it was the year that a very uncomfortable thing happened. And Parley Pro, you just say that word and I want to cry, like really want to cry. So I know that contest was super, super stressful. And when I walked through the line at Mr. Curry's funeral, or at his visitation, his wife Barb said to me, you two are just like two peas in a pod. And I looked at Barb and said, I don't think so. I think we're like peas and carrots. And the reason I think we were like peas and carrots is because I took a hot minute and told Kendra to definitely consider her options, because I think I was super stressed. And but Ed, on the other hand, gave her the biggest smile and said, please do it. And I think that's why my friend Ed and I worked so well together, is because we really did balance each other almost extraordinarily perfectly. And the last service award was to my friend, Ed Curry. Thank you.
The first time I met Lisa, I was collegiate FFA advisor at SIU, and I had brought kids up for a PAS conference. And this was back whenever they had this first year ag teachers class, and Justin and Nick, who were Southern Illinois grads, were in this room, and they were, having a choice beverage with this lady named Lisa. And I thought, I don't know who this lady is. Well, the year later, Lisa and I got to room together at NAA conference for Teacher Turn the Key, and then we started following each other. I followed her onto the FFA board, she followed me onto the IAVAT board, and it just kind of went from there. Lisa has been a great, great president this year. She thinks hard about decisions that are made, and we could not have asked for a better president this year. So if you would, please help in joining me in congratulating Lisa on a very successful year.
Thank you all very much. It has been an honor to serve this group, and I appreciate all of you.
I had the opportunity to start teaching 14 years ago up in Section 1. I became the third teacher in Joe Davis County. We got into a habit of when we go to contests, we'd get there and I'd always hear Ed and Lisa's kids talking about mom and dad. Now, he was dad at River Ridge, she was mom at Scales Mountain, so that left me with the only conclusion that I had to be Uncle Buck. Had to lighten it up a little bit there. So before we dismiss this evening, I know we're a little late. I apologize for not moving things along faster. We do have a couple announcements I'd like to remind people of. The U of I alumni reception will convene shortly after this banquet gets out in the courtyard outside here. The SIU alumni reception will be in the Brook Ridge and the Ironwood rooms, I believe across the hall here, is where their alumni reception will be. There will be a camp meeting. Camp's back, everybody. So we're looking for anyone who's willing to come sweat it out at the end of July in Monticello. There will be a camp meeting. It says 8:30. It's probably going to be like 9 o'clock. We'll try and keep it brief in the Fox Creek room, just down the hallway there. Looks like tomorrow the town hall meetings kick off at 9. The Golden Owl Award state interviews for those that need to do that will be in the Fox Street room at 9 a.m. as well. So anyone have any new or unfinished business which should probably come before this meeting? Mr. Edgar. Sounds like probably the same times that breakfast is, I'm guessing. So, all right. Well, without any further ado, I want to thank all of our retired individuals for making the trek to Bloomington for our 100th celebration. Thank you all. Those who are heading home, please drive safely. Those who are staying, please be safe. And that concludes our awards banquet. Thank you to everyone. Congratulations to all of our winners.